The Indianapolis Colts made the playoffs for the second time in Frank Reich's 3-year tenure as head coach, but fell just shy of moving on in the wild card round. Then came the retirement of Phillip Rivers.
To develop the type of bond and camaraderie that we had was pretty special.
And the Colts found themselves with an opening under center. GM Chris Ballard made a polarizing move and dealt for former Eagles quarterback Carson Wentz. And in the process, giving up a potential first-round pick.
Last year didn't go personally the way I envisioned it, the way the team wanted it to go, all of those things. But, you know, you live and you learn from those things, and you leave them behind you and you get better from it.
The Colts are clearly banking on Wentz returning to his 2017 form, and he had the best season of his career with his now head coach as his then offensive coordinator. But just as Wentz was getting acquainted with his new team, surgery, an old injury that was re-aggravated in training camp, leaving his Week 1 status in serious doubt. Not only that, but they may be without their 3-time All-Pro guard Quentin Nelson for Week 1 and beyond, who also needed foot surgery. Can the Colts get healthy in time to challenge the Titans in the AFC South? If not, their road back to the postseason may be much more difficult this time around. It has already been an eventful day there at Colts Training Camp. We are very lucky to have Evan Washburn there. Let's start with the quarterback thing going on here because, of course, Carson Wentz is out after undergoing that foot surgery. His return, very unknown, 5 to 12 weeks. We're just going to have to see. But today, for the first time, we actually got to see Sam Ellinger taking reps with the first team. How do you look out there?
He looked good. He split those reps with Jacob Easton, last year's 4th-round pick out of Washington, who didn't see any time under center. So basically, they're both rookies. It's been Easton's job since Wentz went down, but Ellinger's just been so good in practice over the last week that, as Frank Reich put it after practice, this is a meritocracy, and he's earned the right to compete for this job. So they're going to split first-team reps for the foreseeable future, and that includes going in to the first preseason game against the Panthers.
And as you mentioned, Frank Reich saying, look, I want to take a look at everybody there. I mean, if you had to make a guess what we're going to see when it comes to Week 1, what is your best estimate as of right now?
Well, I would say the hope is that it's Carson Wentz. Look, that 5 to 12 week timetable could put him at about 6 weeks for Week 1, so that would be extremely optimistic. He was out of practice today, obviously not taking part in it, but he looked good, no protection on that left foot. He was bouncing from drill to drill watching this QB competition. They're looking at 2 weeks out from surgery, so that would be next Monday, to really know where Wentz is and to give a strong indication of where they would be able to see him back in live action. Jacob Easton comes in ahead of the game based off of being a part of this team a year ago, familiar with the offense, all those things. But look, if Ellinger outplays him over the next couple weeks, then it's his job as well in Week 1.
It is not just Carson Wentz who is out with an injury, but of course Quentin Nelson had that exact same foot surgery. So, Evan, for the past several seasons, the Colts offensive line has been fantastic. It's also been one of the healthiest. The health is the thing right now. So give us an update on Nelson and then also what we can expect as we inch closer to Week 1.
Quentin Nelson going through the exact same surgery as you mentioned. So same timeline, same optimism right now. He came out of surgery really well. He's a week out. Carson Wentz is 8 days out. But it speaks to your point, this offensive line being the heart and soul of this team. And right now, they're kind of in tatters. It's Quentin Nelson with the serious foot injury, and then you've got Ryan Kelly, the center, managing an elbow injury. They don't feel like that's severe, but he's not out of practice. And then left tackle, Eric Fisher, they bring him in to replace Anthony Costanzo, but he's coming off a torn Achilles in January. They've put no timetable on his return, hopeful for maybe the heart of the season. So a lot of question for this offensive line that's, one, hopeful to protect Carson Wentz, but also provide running lanes for Jonathan Taylor, who's coming off a really, really breakout year 1 here.
Yeah, let's talk about Jonathan Taylor here for a little bit. He is a betting favorite to lead the NFL in rushing yards by the end of the season. He finished 3rd last season as a rookie. You mentioned just a phenomenal year. So how is he looking at camp? Is it possible we see even better production from him this season?
I think that's tough to gamble on, to use some of your terms there, based off of that question across the offensive line with Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, left tackle Eric Fisher. But he's primed physically to carry the load and really carry the offense for this team. And you have to imagine, too, Amanda, if they're going with either Jacob Easton or Sam Ellinger out of the gate, they're going to rely on the run game. So that means a lot of Jonathan Taylor. But also important to note, Marlon Mack is back. He was the lead back before tearing his Achilles in week 1 last season. So there's hope that he'll share some of the workload with Taylor to keep that back fresh, that backfield fresh. And then Nyheim Hines coming out of there as that third down pass catching back. So a bevy of options for Frank Wright and company. But Jonathan Taylor's obviously the lead guy.
It is a good day. It's a good week for Darius Leonard in general. Sunday became the NFL's highest paid linebacker, 5-year extension worth almost $100 million. He's also back at practice today for the first time since undergoing ankle surgery in June. We saw the video that the Colts put out, but what did you see out there?
Well, it's similar to the pictures, but you get the juice from the sideline when Darius Leonard's out there. They call him the Maniac for good reason. I mean, he was pumping up the crowd here in Westfield, Indiana, and he was just attacking the team periods like it was week 1 or even maybe a playoff game in Buffalo a year ago. They weren't even in full pads, but he was all over the place, flying around. Obviously, thrilled to have that contract done, but most notably thrilled for the chance to lead this defense that's going to be so critical for this team throughout the season, but especially out of the gate, even if they have Carson Wentz back, because that's the established and known factor for this team right now and something they can lean on early, and Darius Leonard drives that group.
Evan, talk to us about Kwity Paye. That's the guy that the Colts selected 21st overall, defensive end out of Michigan there, because it seems like his head coach is pretty impressed with what he sees so far.
Absolutely. He's already lined up as part of the first-team defense as a starter here just a couple weeks into camp. And they made a real priority in the draft to get better up front. They have DeForest Buckner. They know that. But to compete in the AFC South with Derrick Henry, and we saw this in the game where Tennessee came to Indy and just ran all over them, they got to be better up front. Kwity Paye can do that as a run defender, but especially in getting after the passer. So he's been as advertised, and they're thrilled about it.
Evan, let's talk about your expectations for the Colts overall. They went 11-5 last season, lost to the Bills in the wild card round. As you've mentioned, we're dealing with a handful of early injuries. That offensive line has to get healthy. But what is your prediction right now for the Colts this season?
Well, I will say, talking to Frank Reich after practice, he'll convince you that anything is possible. He's the eternal optimist. And I asked him the similar question you're asking me about expectations when you factor in what this team has gone through the last couple weeks and some of the questions that they're facing heading into the season when it comes to the health of key players. And he went through the normal things you would hear a head coach say, but then he went down and said, look, it's World Championship. We're in year 4 as a program with Ballard and Reich, and they feel like that's the expectation. So I'm not sure I'm ready to go there yet. I need to see how healthy they're going to be. And it's important to acknowledge that their first 8 games are as challenging as any schedule right now in the league of 31 other teams, especially those first 5. So that doesn't mesh well with some of their key players being banged up. I think this is a playoff team, but it's going to be neck and neck with Tennessee to try and grab the AFC South. I'm not sure this is a 2 playoff team division.
All right, Evan, you've been hopping across the country. Thank you so much for that report from Colts Training Camp, because I know you're about to hit the road yet again here on HQ. We're giving you a tour of training camps across the country. Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.